Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode the master design behind our body's engines. Yep, our muscles. And you'll see how a super simple decision, whether one cell talks to its neighbor, ends up defining its entire purpose. It's pretty amazing.
All right, let's just dive right in. The core idea here is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. In biology, form dictates function. A cell's job is totally determined by its design. And when you look at our three muscle types, skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, what you're really seeing are three absolute master clauses in purpose-built cellular architecture.
So, to really get a handle on these unique blueprints, we need a map, a way to compare their core characteristics. So let's lay out the specs for each muscle type, side by side, and see what shakes out.
Okay, so this chart really lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at that control row. Skeletal is the only one we consciously command. But for me, the real engineering genius is hidden down in that calcium source row. See, skeletal muscle uses its own internal calcium stores. Think of it like an onboard battery pack for quick, on-demand bursts of power. But cardiac and smooth muscle, they pull calcium from outside the cell. And this is so critical. Why? Because it allows for these longer, more sustained contractions, and it prevents the kind of fatigue that would be, absolutely disastrous in an organ like your heart.
All right, let's kick things off with the muscle type we actually have direct control over. I want you to think of skeletal muscle as a team of highly specialized independent contractors. Each one is just sitting there, waiting for its very own specific work order. So here's the crucial point. For any kind of precise, graded movement, we're talking playing a piano, threading a needle, you name it, you absolutely cannot have the entire muscle firing at once. That'd be all or nothing. Instead, you need the ability to activate just one fiber, or maybe 100 or 1,000. And to pull that off, each muscle fiber needs its own direct, exclusive command line. They are kept separate on purpose. And this right here is that command line, the neuromuscular junction, or NMJ. It's a private one-to-one connection. It's a direct line. When a motor neuron fires and releases its chemical messenger, acetylcholine, it guarantees that only its designated muscle fiber gets the message. And to keep that control incredibly precise, that acetylcholine gets broken down super fast. This stops the signal from just lingering or spilling over to its neighbors. There's zero crosstalk, just pure, clean, precise control. Okay, now let's pivot to the heart and see how its cells pull off the complete opposite. Perfect, synchronized unity. Because here, independent action isn't just inefficient, it would be catastrophic. Yeah, the heart just can't afford a bench of independent contractors. It needs a team that moves as one. You've got specialized pacemaker cells that kick off the beat, sure. But that signal has to spread, and I mean instantly, to every single contractile cell to generate enough force to push blood through your entire body. The whole chamber has to squeeze at the exact same time. So how in the world does biology solve this massive engineering challenge? And here it is, the brilliant solution. Specialized hardware that physically and electrically locks the cells together. These things, called intercalated discs, are like the seams that literally stitch the entire heart muscle into one single, functional piece of fabric. Now, if we zoom in on these discs, we find two critical pieces of hardware. First up, you've got desmosomes. Seriously, just think of them as molecular rivets. Their job is to provide the raw mechanical strength, anchoring cells together so they don't rip apart under the incredible pressure of a heartbeat. But the real game changer, the thing that makes communication possible, is that second component, the gap junctions. So what are gap junctions? Well, they're basically open doorways between the cells. When one cell gets the electrical signal to contract, all the ions that carry that signal, we're talking sodium, calcium, they just rush right through these pores into the next cell, and the next, and the next. The signal just propagates almost instantaneously, spreading like a wave through the whole tissue. And the end result of all these gap junctions is something we call a functional syncytium. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. Even though the heart is made of billions of individual cells, these connections make it act electrically and mechanically as if it were one single gigantic cell. And that is the design that guarantees a powerful, unified heartbeat every single time. All right, now for what might be our most versatile muscle type, smooth muscle. You find it lining our hollow organs and blood vessels, and it has evolved this incredibly clever way to perform two very different kinds of jobs, all while using pretty much the same basic parts. I mean, just think about it for a second. The muscle in your intestine, it needs to produce these slow, coordinated waves to move food along. We call that peristalsis. But then you've got the muscle controlling the iris of your eye, which needs to make tiny, super fine adjustments to light. So how can one muscle type do both?
Well, the answer comes down to whether its cells decide to talk to each other or not.
And here you have it, the two elegant solutions. Over on the left, you've got single-unit smooth muscle. This is the stuff in your gut or your bladder. It's just packed with gap junctions, creating that functional syncytium we just talked about with the heart. It's perfect for generating those unified, wave-like contractions. Then, on the right, you've got multi-unit smooth muscle, like in the iris of your eye. These cells are loners. They're totally isolated. No gap junctions. What does that mean? It means a nerve signal can activate only a few specific cells, allowing for incredibly precise adjustments. It is just a beautiful example of evolutionary efficiency. You've got the same basic cell performing two completely different jobs, all by just flipping a switch, gap junctions on or gap junctions off.
And this brings us right to the core principle, the central theme of this whole explainer. We've looked at 3 different muscles, each with a totally different job. And now we can finally see the underlying design logic that ties them all together.
So, what is that fundamental design principle? It all boils down to one simple, elegant strategy: cellular connection. It's not really about the proteins that do the contracting. Those are pretty much the same across the board. Nope, it's all about communication. And here it is, the ultimate takeaway, the bottom line. The type of junction a muscle has or doesn't have is what truly defines its purpose. For skeletal muscle, no junctions means total isolation, which gives you precision control. For cardiac muscle, gap junctions everywhere means absolute unity, a powerful all-or-nothing contraction. And for smooth muscle, being able to choose whether to use gap junctions gives it this incredible versatility. It can be unified when it needs to be and precise when it has to be.
But this powerful idea that connection defines function, it doesn't just stop with muscle, not by a long shot. It's the exact same logic that governs our entire nervous system, where literally trillions of synaptic connections are what create thought, memory, consciousness itself. That simple choice, does a cell connect to its neighbor or not, turns out to be one of the most fundamental, most powerful design rules in all of biology. Something to think about.